This was me when I was 10 years old. This is the first painting I ever did. Copied a postcard. I was in a class. See the raw talent. Graffiti, I grew up in the Bronx. Everything I owned at one point had graffiti on it. But you can see, nothing special. Quality controls, just like any other kid.
These are so cute. So they're like what you were in an art class.
Yeah, I took an art class. My parents, because of where I grew up, it was a really bad area. My parents insisted that we not have a lot of downtime because you can get yourself in a lot of trouble like that. So, this is me. So this one is like, some of these are dated, so I know exactly where they were. So I graduated high school 4 months after this. You can tell I was proud of this. I finished it at 9:20 p.m. Right, and it's airbrush and oil. But I was proud of this. I was 17 years old when I did this.
It's really cute. I'd be proud of that too.
Right, but this doesn't tell you that I'm going in the direction of the career that I have. You know, there's nothing here that this kid's a prodigy. And that's always a big thing. That's one of the reasons that I have this portfolio, is because people are like, oh, you can do it because you're talented. It's like, no, I can do it because I've worked hard at it. That's all it is. If you're willing to put in the work, anyone can do this, and I'm living proof of that. This one, I was out of high school already. This is a year later. So I graduated high school already at this point. The raw talent is just oozing off the canvas, isn't it? Michelangelo, look out. Again, this is just about a year after I graduated high school. Now, there's many paintings between these. Like, as I'm going, I'm making a lot of paintings. So, these are jumps.
Changing.
Yeah, so there are these jumps. But again, like, I clearly don't know anything. I'm trying to be creative. These paintings were all destroyed. They've been sitting in here, unused for years, but... Again, 88, a year later. 20 years old at this point. It's a Bob Ross mountain. But I clearly don't know anything. There's nothing here to show you that I understand anything about light and shadow, edge, color. I don't know any of it. I'm simply painting what I see. I can only do what I'm able to perceive, and I can perceive almost nothing because I'm not trained. Again, I make these leaps forward. The difference between this one and the last one is that I had better reference material. This was a photograph, clean photograph from a bodybuilding magazine. This was a clean photograph from a swimsuit magazine. They were like full-page photographs. But still, I don't understand how edges work. I'm not even aware of them. Colors or whatever come off the brush. I'm 20 years old here. This, 22 years old. More colorful, but from beyond that, still don't have any idea about edges. Don't understand light and shadow. 3 fundamental moving parts I don't have any grasp of. But simply serving time, standing in front of an easel, working day after day after day, yields a result. And this stuff, it's important. Again, this is 1990. I'm 21 years old here. Clocking my time. I'm putting in my hours. I'm churning out painting after painting after painting. Still, you can see I have no idea about light and shadow. No clue. Cast shadows should be sharp. Form shadows should be graded. There's none of that in here. The colors make no sense. I have no idea. I'm just painting what kind of rolls through my head. Some things I make up, some things I have photographs for. So again, 1990, I'm 21 when I did this. I mean, seriously, like, again, talent. I don't believe in it because I don't have it. I work harder, That's about it. Here, I'm starting to think like I could actually start building a portfolio. And again, there's some things that are better about this, but I defy you to find any grasp of value, color, and edge in this painting. There's nothing here. I have 10-year-old students in the school who knew more about the fundamentals of art making than I did when I made this at 22 years old, right? You can see it, because you understand those moving parts. You can see there's nothing here. There's nothing here that explains any of that. I'm just copying what's in photographs to the degree that I can see it and understand it.
Right. So you think it's not enough to just, I don't know, I feel like I hear that advice a lot, where you just, like basically all you need to do is just like look better, like see better, and then like just keep putting in like time behind time with a pencil, I guess.
You know what? That's nonsense. That's like looking at mathematical equations. If you look at them long enough, you'll understand them. It doesn't work like that. I could have painted the rest of my life and never made sense of the parts that make the painting work. I could see more and make better paintings, but it would have always been a struggle. Always been a struggle, because I wouldn't have understood why things worked, how things came together. And I couldn't replicate this. If I did this painting 10 times, it would look different every single time. Wildly different, even if I was trying to match it. Because I had no idea how I'd arrived at this result.
So you think that, I feel like that's a common question I see too. It's like how to get consistency.
You do it through an education. You have to have knowledge. Without knowledge, you're just taking stabs in the dark, right? So the education is what does that. Understanding how things work. If I understood how light and shadow, edge and color worked, I could replicate this 1,000 times. It would look pretty much the same every time. But here, I had no idea. I would do 10 paintings, 3 would be decent, 7 would be garbage. I couldn't control the quality of what was being produced. And mind you, I'm not a child at this point. I'm 21 years old. Right, and it's important you pay attention to the dates. Here, I'm trying to build a portfolio here for professional work. This is what I'm thinking is going to get me book cover jobs. And it's not that the work isn't improving, but I have no idea how to do what I'm doing. I'm just kind of winging it based on experience. And I work hard, right? So we talk about the 3 pillars of an education. I talk about them all the time. You have to have education in knowledge, right? So you have to be trained in how things work, why they work. The second thing is guided experience. Somebody who knows what they're doing to stand over you and keep you on track while you practice. And then the last pillar is you stepping up and delivering 100% every time you work, clocking the time and earning the experience, okay? For me, I was applying, I didn't have knowledge. I didn't have anyone to guide me, but I had a lot of experience in front of an easel. I was 12, 15 hours a day, every day. It's all I did. So that's going to yield a result. But this painting is riddled with problems, and I couldn't reproduce it if I had to, because I didn't understand what made something work. And so when something was successful, that was great, but I couldn't replicate it. And when something failed, that was terrible, and it didn't help me to figure out how to not make the mistake again, because I didn't understand what was making it fail. And again, I'm 21, I'm 21 at this point. Would be the next piece. Again, you can see the date. Dates, like I said, they get very important in here. And again, this is fine for hobby art, but this is not going anywhere. I'm 23 years old here. I'm 22. I was born in 68, December of 68. So I'm 23. Again, defy anybody to tell me that I have talent. It's 23 years old. Now mind you, I'm pretty much doing it on my own. This painting, I was working on it when I met Dorian, the guy who kind of opened the door for me. This painting, this figure's not painted in because I was in the middle of this when I went out to his house and met him. Okay? This is the painting I did right after this one. So I was working on this, got the call from Dorian, hey, you can come out to my place and you can do some work. I was like, okay. So I stopped working on this, and this was the next painting I did. So how do you bridge that gap? How do you get from that to that? That looks like talent. But clearly, talent doesn't factor in. Something happened here. So what did I say? We have 3 pillars. Education and knowledge, guided experience, and your own tenacity, the amount of energy you put into your work. I was at 100% on that last one. Everything I did was to the extent that I could possibly muster up. Everything I had went into it. But I had no education and knowledge, and I had no help from anybody who knew what they were doing to show me. I went out to Dorian's house. He gave me a few pieces of knowledge and then stood over me and guided me while I worked. And I don't mean stood over me, but he was there in the room while I was working, so that if I had a question, I could turn and say, hey, I don't really get this thing. What do I do here? So the 2 pillars that were missing when I was working on this were simply added for this. And only in a tiny dose. I worked at Dorian's house for a day on this. So it wasn't like I was there for 6 months and he was training me. There was no Rocky music in the background, right? It was just, I sat down and I did what I was told. And this is what came of it. There's no talent here. That's why when people say, oh, it's talent, there's no such thing. There's an education and there's hard work. There's nothing else. Anybody who wants to learn to do this can. I mean, this is insane. I understand that people don't mean it, but if people use the word talent, I find myself offended because it discards all of the labor. Nobody says neurosurgeons are talented because we know how hard they work to gain mastery. So once I did that, I then started making paintings for portfolio because I'm like, okay, I'm here, I've got it. Mind you, 1991, 1991, 1991. This is all in the same year. So it's not like I was working on this one and there were 20 other paintings before I did the portrait. They are literally back to back. And these are the ones that followed. There are a number of others, there are about 10 others, but this is what I hold on to. And you can see, 91. I still don't understand value, color, or edge, but my quality controls are different now. I understand what a finished painting, what the potential of it is, what it can look like. I'm also doing much better photography. I went out and I invested in equipment. I have a proper camera and good lighting. And I was shown how to light the thing to get good form. I didn't understand any of it, but I could replicate what I was shown. And so that's all I did. I got a diagram from him. Here's your subject, put one light here, camera's here. That's what I was given. And then I just tweaked it as I went. Again, 91. Paintings are still hit or miss because I still don't understand anything. I've just got I've got a proper palette, good brushes, and a system for building a painting. That's what I was given through Dorian. Again, 91. The precision in here. And so I went from that to my first book cover, which was delivered early in 1992. So within a year of that portrait, I have my first book cover. A couple of the Evolve students found this in bookstores. So again, much more refined. The work's getting more and more refined as I'm going. But I still don't understand anything. And I'm working a hell of a lot harder than I needed to deliver these paintings. I was killing myself to do these paintings. They took me forever because I didn't understand how they worked. I just knuckled down. I could spend a day painting one figure. Painting like this could take me a month because I didn't know how it worked. But I painted everything. I got good reference and I painted everything. I just did everything with maximum effort. Nothing went by And it's, again, there are terribly imperfect places in this painting, but I never let anything go by. I never let anything go by that I knew how to do better. Nothing. There was never a single stroke that went down that I knew I could do better and that I'd leave it in place. I fixed everything and anything that was within my ability to fix. Good enough was never good enough. You want a career like I have, that's where you have to be. Because almost everybody accepts less than the best they can do. I'm not talking about perfection, I'm talking about less than the best they can do. In your head you hear it, oh, that's good enough. And if you accept that, you'll always be mediocre. Reality of it. Because there are people out there who refuse to accept that as the end of what they produce. And that's in all fields. Anyway, so these are just a bunch of book covers. I mean, just a handful of them, not much.
How does that work? Like, do you like mail a portfolio to like a publishing company and say like I can make art?
Yes. Well, it's different now than it was.
Yeah, sure, but like
when I was doing it, basically you would take photographs of your work and you would send them to the publishing company, and the publishing company would. I actually have some of my old portfolio here, so you can see it. But they would basically look through the stuff and decide whether or not you were somebody who could produce for them. Very hard to get in, because the art directors have hundreds of artists who are already working for them, delivering consistently, month after month after month. So why would they take a shot on someone new? Your work has to stand out. So, but this was a book cover for a magazine, Inquest magazine, I think, a video game magazine.
That's so cool.
Simple designs. Book cover for Valentine books. And again, I still don't really know what I'm doing. I don't understand. I'm getting better and better at copying my photographs and extrapolating based on the photograph what the other stuff would look like. But I really still don't know what I'm doing. Even here. Lots of quality control. Lots of rich color. But I still don't understand the difference between a cast shadow and a firm shadow. It's not even that I don't understand them. I'm completely unaware of them. It never crossed my mind to even think about it. I just rendered what I saw. And it's somewhat stylized. Even religious greeting cards. You name it, I've painted it over the years.
Did you get an actual baby?
No, that was a doll. Very, very realistic doll. So, these you're not going to be able to show them on there because there's slides. But I told you I had Magic the Gathering. So, sketch 1 for Magic the Gathering. Finish sketch. There's my photo reference. You'll be able to kind of hold these up to the light. You'll be able to see them.
What are those for?
This is actually how the portfolio is shown to publishing companies.
What? Why?
Because they're really nice when you can view them properly.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Do they still do it this way? Like
No,
now,
everything
or?
is digital now.
Okay.
Everything's digital.
Is it because printing technology wasn't as, I don't know, yeah, why this rather than like a print?
Because, so film has its limitations. It has real limitations. Colors lean one way or another. Here's some other. So these are the 2 paintings that landed me my first job. The portfolio I submitted, this was in the portfolio also, but the portfolio I submitted, they were like, well, it's okay, but, not quite good enough. And so, one of the art directors was nice enough to talk to me. And I asked, well, what is it that's missing? And she told me, and so I made 2 paintings specifically for her, meaning the things that she said were not where they needed to be. And those 2 pieces are what got me my first job.
Is it like movie posters?
No, I've never done one. But here's the Magic book, the cover. So you hold that up so you can see it.
Oh my god. So cool. Wait, I guess I can try and.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to get a clean shot of that. I mean, you might be. But there's a whole bunch of these book covers here. Here's another one. People
Wow.
who like dragons.
Wow, this is so cool.
Here's another dragon. This one, you probably like this one. So this Blood of the Fold, he's a New York Times best-selling author. That series became a TV show, Sort of Truth. But anyway, this is the fun part. So for some of these pieces, for a lot of them, I actually built models. So for that dragon, this is the reference photograph. I built this dragon so that I would have a properly lit dragon for my painting.
Wow, I guess people would probably do this in like 3D modeling now, right?
Well, if you have that skill. Only if you have it, like building in 3D modeling. I built that thing in probably 6 hours. In 3D modeling, I don't know, is 6 hours reasonable, or is that like a 3-week project? Obviously, if you're doing a commissioned book cover, the whole painting should be done in about 2 weeks. You can't spend 2 weeks doing the modeling on it. The modeling's got to be quick, in and out. But anyway, here's a bunch of book covers. Sadly, I didn't hold on to these things. This is role-playing game stuff. These are a couple of figure paintings. These are life-size.
Wow.
Here's another sketch from one of the paintings you saw before. This is a sketch that was done for Battlefield Earth. I was supposed to redo the cover for that, and it eventually fell through, and the new art director took over. Here's Street Fighter. This was one of the sketches. It's not the final. Let me see if I can find the actual chrome on that. I think it's in here somewhere. If not, I have a print off. So this was the final painting. It's Cami and Blanca.
Oh, is this the thing that's over there?
Yes. Right, so that down below is one of the is a sketch. Right. Right?
Wow.
That down below is a sketch. This is one of the sketches that was not accepted. We did three different ways of them fighting, and this one, they like this one. Mm-hmm. So, again, we'll just kind of go through these.
What was that for? Or is it
This
like...
was actually, I had a gallery show, and they asked me to do something specifically for the show. It was all book cover illustration, and they asked me to do this one. But they just asked me for something that was more personal, something that wasn't attached to a book. So, here's another one, role-playing game cover.
Wow.
Book cover. I mean, these are all pretty much all book covers.
I heard they're going away from like painted book covers these days.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
You don't think so?
Nope. This genre will never move away from it. It's not possible because the fan base for the art is as big as the fan base for the writer. Another one.
How do you like print it onto this film?
Well, these are giant slides. They're just like 35 millimeter slides. These are just large, 8 by 10.
Wow. So do they like when they view it, they put it on like?
On a light box. Yeah, this was National Geographic.
So this is a paint?
This is a photograph.
Photograph.
It's a photograph of a painting.
Photograph of a painting.
I mean, a photograph is not, so the cheetah, lion, leopard.
These are all South American animals. So harpy, eagle, and up top. Them.
Yeah, so you send this,
Notes come back,
and then you do the final
and
painting.
then they approve it, and then you generate the painting. So I got notes. There was a lion head in the original sketch, and they decided they didn't want it. It was a big part of the book, but they thought that it unbalanced the cover. So, and again, as an artist, you never really know what they're looking for, how they're going to design the the text and everything on the book. So you kind of work. So here's another one. And just work within standard boundaries, and then they come back. They'll they'll formulate their design based on your sketch, and then they'll tell you, well, take this out, move this over there.
So as a book cover illustrator, so you have to read the book, I guess?
Yes, I've read every book.
You read all the books? Are you expected to?
Most artists don't have the time.
But you have to design the cover, right? Based
Everything.
on the content.
Yes.
So you have
But you
to
get a
read
synopsis.
the book.
You get a synopsis. A lot of it's because the industry's not that big. A lot of artists, we know the authors. So you call the author, hey, I'm working on this book for you. I don't have time to read it. What's going on? So here's another sketch. Again, this was done for a company called White Wolf. It's a role-playing game. And again, it's a pretty loose sketch. This was the final painting. So you can see there's a lot more information in the final painting. The guy's dissolving, disintegrating.
Wow.
So this is a book cover. This is and again, so the printed book cover doesn't compare to what the original looks like. And even this chrome is not as nice as the original. The original is much richer than this.
Do you have all the original paintings?
No, I don't have any of them. They've all been sold over the years.
Oh, it's a good fate for them.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see, you can kind of go through these. Just like I said, I didn't hold on to most of the stuff. To me, it's just clutter, which is unfortunate because it would have been nice to still have all of it. When people ask me what I do, or they want to see my portfolio, I really don't have much to show. Again, this is that first book cover that I showed you. There's the.
Oh, there it is. Printed
But
out.
I've got about 250 book covers that I've done. For people who want to know what I've done, about 250 book covers and maybe another 75 to 100 other pieces of art for publication. Really, the real claim to fame for me, after all those different projects, that's really what put me on the map. That's a Rolling Stones cover. So.
That's your painting?
That's my painting. And it's funny, so here's just promo stuff that they had put together. But I have something, it's the only existing version of the original art. So they made a change to this, and so this was the original painting.
Whoa.
And this painting is buried underneath the one that's on the cover.
So they changed your artwork?
Well, I went in and repainted it.
Okay, so they asked for a revision?
Yes. So they made a major change to it, and I had to actually overpaint all of this with the desert, change the color of the line. There wasn't enough time to repaint the painting from scratch because the slipcase had already been designed and they needed everything to line up perfectly. So I had to paint on top of the original painting. So this painting doesn't exist anymore. It's buried underneath the finished version.
Wow.
But when they came to New York, to Brooklyn, and they announced the tour, they hung an 85-foot banner of my painting off the Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It doesn't get better than that. And so here's some portrait work. Mm-hmm. It's a 6-foot by 5-foot painting. So I've painted this whole family. That was.
Oh, is this the one inside the other book?
Yes. So a couple of the daughters with their horses.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another more simpler, more traditional. This is a big painting, life size. These are all life size.
Wow, it's a painting within a painting.
Yes. Well, she's a 9/11 widow.
Mm.
She's out in California. Her husband, Tom Burnett, he was on Flight 93. He's one of the guys that helped take back the plane. Crashed it in Pennsylvania. So we didn't want to put him in the painting like everybody else, but he couldn't not be there. So these are just copies. Again, life size, it's like 6 or 7 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got, for a while I did some figurative work. So this is a 6 foot by 4 foot figure painting.
Wow.
And then just smaller figures. Just playing around. At the photo studio, I have an 8 foot by 5 foot painting of Atlas. Part of this kind of set. Again, here's another portrait.
So why did you decide to go in this direction and doing portraits?
People kept, well, it's funny. So actually, here's another guy. Some people will maybe recognize him. He's a pretty famous guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know who he is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I got into portraits because, well, so I did book covers and I kind of burned myself out. This is the nature of that industry. I burned myself out. And I got away from art for about 2 years. People kept contacting me and asking me if I would do a portrait. And I kept saying no, I wasn't interested in painting these kind of boring people standing around. Not that the people were boring, but it seemed like a boring subject after painting fire and explosions and dragons and all that other stuff. Mm-hmm. And at one point, an author that I had done a number of book covers for reached out to me. It was he and his wife's like 40th or 50th wedding anniversary. And he asked me if I would be willing to do a portrait for them. And I was like, yeah, absolutely, of course. I mean, you know, I had known the guy for forever. And so I went out and I did a photo shoot, went back, I did the painting, and then I went out for they had a party and anniversary party, and we unveiled the painting there. And this was before cell phones. I was there for another day or so. By the time I got home, I had like 6 messages on my answering machine asking me for portraits. And so I reached out to them in order, and I was like, well, I'm not a portrait painter. And like that one, like I know the guy, and so I was happy to do it, but like I'll do yours. And then the second person, I was like, I'm not a portrait painter, but I'll put it in queue, and if I'm still interested, I'll let you know when I'm done with the piece I'm working on. And I kind of did that with everybody. And by the time I got to the 6th one, there was like another 15 of them on the other side of that. And for years, I would always say the same thing. Well, I'm not a portrait painter, but I'll put it in queue. And as long as you're willing to wait, it's going to be a year, it's going to be 18 months, whatever it is. And if I get to it and I'm still interested in doing this kind of work, we'll schedule. And at one point, I did a major portrait commission. It was a big piece, 7 feet by 5.5 feet. It was a whole family. And I remember getting the down payment on it, because most of these portraits, they're 1 or 2 people. And I remember getting the down payment on it, looking at the down payment and thinking, I'm a portrait painter. Damn, I'm like looking at this and I'm like, this is more money. This is more money in a single check than my family made, and my whole family, like growing up, in like 3 years. And I'm like, this is gonna take me a month to paint. I think I'm a portrait painter. I enjoyed the work. And I had been years into doing portraits at that point. But I'd gotten so used to telling people, well, I don't know if I'm gonna be interested in doing this by the time I get to your painting, so I don't wanna guarantee I'll get it. But I'll put it in the queue. And, but yeah, that's how I got into it. And I just eventually came around to realizing I was a portrait painter. And I love doing it.
Wow.
Some of the people that I've met, I would never have met them otherwise. And they've enriched my life. So, but yeah, I mean, I love the work. And beyond this, I owned a publishing company. That's another thing, I don't talk about that very much, but I owned a publishing company for almost 10 years. When I got out of doing book covers, a friend of mine and we opened up a publishing company, just a small company. In the 10 years that followed, we did about 130 titles, I think, something like that. But we handled the limited edition for Game of Thrones. So I worked with George R. R. Martin on Game of Thrones for like 6 years. So, yeah. How's that for a name drop?
Wow.
Yeah. So that's, but yeah, I've been around. I don't, like, again, like this stuff, people don't, know very much about me because most of what I did that would make me arguably famous, I did before the internet really had its legs under it. So unless somebody went back in and kind of backfilled that data, you'd really have no idea. You do a Google search, I don't come up. And I'm completely happy with that.
You're good with that?
I'm happy to be anonymous. Doesn't change what I get paid for my work. Doesn't change my status amongst my peers. And I get to kind of just kind of stroll around in the world and be left alone. That's nice. I like that. So we were talking about that a little bit last night.
Right.
I like being anonymous. I'm completely fine with that.
Just in the little circle.
Yeah.
You're esteemed.
Yeah. People who need to know me know me. And look, I don't think that I do anything special. Like I said, I'm not gifted. I'm not talented. All I'm doing here is sharing what I figured out to make life a little bit easier for people trying to follow in that same path. That's all I'm doing. You know, the art world has been so kind to me. I mean, just incredibly kind to me. If not for art, I'd be a construction worker. That's where my life was going. It's where I was when I decided to get into art. I've lived an incredible life because of art. And so this is a way of me paying it back, giving it to other people. I have the information. Why wouldn't I share it?
Thank you, Kevin.